This video will show you how to take apart or disassemble a Samsung or Maytag front load dryer. Safety first, so always disconnect power before servicing any electrical appliance. And remember, the internal edges on these machines are very sharp, so be careful not to get cut when you're taking these machines apart. All the internal edges are very sharp, they will cut you. The first thing you want to do with your Samsung or Maytag, some Maytag dryers that are made by Samsung, is turn it around so you can access the back to remove these two screws. These are the screws that hold the top panel on. So you'll use a Phillips head screwdriver. You can also use a nut driver on it for whatever size it needs, probably 3/8. But remove those two screws and set them aside. And once you've got the screws off the top there that hold the back on, work the top where it'll slide back about 2 inches, and then it'll just lift up. Now remember, those edges are all sharp. So now that we're on the inside, everything is sharp, so be careful. Okay, now that you've got that taken care of, we want to go ahead and remove the screws that hold the top front panel on, the controls panel. And on this one there's 4, so I'm going to remove all 4 of these screws that hold on the controls panel. And there's one there. These are all Phillips screwdriver heads on them. Some machines will have a screwdriver to use, others you may have to use a nut driver or a socket set. But just remove the screws that hold the front panel on. Now that you've got those screws removed, I'm going to go ahead and turn the machine back around and just lift forward, and then you'll see that it still has the cord attached to it that goes to the interface board that leads over to the main computer. And this one's pretty tight, got some pretty beefy cable on it. I'm just going to let it hang. And actually, it's better not to even hang it if possible. Let's go ahead and set it up like that and out of the way so I can get to these other screws. Now there's 4 screws that hold the front panel at this point, but before I remove those screws to remove the front panel, there's 2 screws on the inside of the door that attach the front panel to the bulkhead there where the lint trap is. So remove these 2 screws that attach it to the lint trap. Get those screws and set them aside, and then you go ahead and close the door. Okay, now we're ready to remove the other 4 screws that hold the panel up, and there's 4. There should be 4. That one's missing. I'm going to go ahead and remove the 3 that are on this one, but you should find 4 on yours. Okay, now that those screws are out of the way, the panel will be very easy to tilt forward, the top of it towards you. Just kind of grab onto it. Remember not to cut yourself. Now right at the top there in the center is where the door switch is, and we need to remove the wire harness from it. So let me reposition the camera so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to pull this forward, and right there is the wire harness for the door switch. And you want to hold the door switch with one hand and then pull out the harness connector with the other hand. You don't want to just pull on the connector, or you will damage or tear up the door switch if you're not careful. So pull them apart, and now that that's done, you can just lift this front panel off of the bottom hinges that it sits on right now. Just lift up and it'll come right off the bottom. Move the camera down here so you can kind of see it come off the bottom. And just be careful not to cut yourself. Again, everything's sharp. Take that and set it aside somewhere where it's not going to fall, and you don't want it to fall and bust the plastic on the glass or anything like that. The next step is to remove the top brace there. There's 2 screws at the bottom of it. The screws that were holding the top of it came off earlier when we removed the screws that were holding the controls panel. They went together. There's 1 screw I'm removing now that's at the top that actually attaches that brace to the box that has the main computer in it. So you have to remove it, set it aside, and then remove these two bottom screws. Make sure all these screws that you're removing, you set them aside in order so that you'll be able to remember which screw goes where when you go back to putting it back together. A lot of them are the same, but some are different or smaller or what have you. So it's always best to take them off in order. Keep them somewhere where they're not going to get knocked around and mixed up. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to put this panel back kind of where it was when original. Turn it around here and grab the brace. It'll pull loose from the side panels. Okay, and the cables go through it, so just set it up there like we had it before with just the control panel so that it's not going to fall. And then you want to reach over here. There's another harness piece that connects to the light for the tub light. Go ahead and unplug it, and now you can just fold those cable assemblies over out of the way. The next step for disassembly, there's 4 screws that mount the front bulkhead to the sides of the machine and also hold the drum in place too. So I'm using a power tool to make it a little faster here, but this Phillips head screwdriver will work as well. But go ahead and remove all 4 of those screws, and of course set them aside when you get them removed. Okay, down at the bottom of the machine, before you can take this front bulkhead off, there's 2 things we need to do. We need to remove a screw that attaches the bottom ducting there to the blower housing, because it won't come off if you don't remove that screw. It's holding it on there. Set it aside, and then unclip the moisture sensor wire harness down at the bottom down there. You'll see where the harness clip is. Just squeeze that tab and then pull it apart. And it might be stuck or hard to do. Just have to get on there and really squeeze kind of hard on that tab to get it to come loose. Once it's loose, so the harness is now loose, we're ready to remove the front bulkhead. Be very careful not to get cut, and lift up on one side and then pull it away, and the other side will pull away. The whole thing will just come right off the front. Set the bulkhead aside, and the last thing we need to do now is loosen the belt from the belt tensioner. So I'm looking in through the left side here. This is where I'm going to stick my arm in to get to it. You can see the white pulley there, and it's got the tension on the belt right now, and I'm going to have to stick my hand in there and grab a hold of it and pull it towards the left, my left if I'm facing the machine. And there it is. From the other side it's real dark, hard to see. I'm going to try to hold. Okay, I got my hand on there now. I'm pulling that pulley towards the left, my left, which is releasing the tension on the belt, and then I'm slipping the belt off with my fingers down at the bottom off of the pulley of the motor. Okay, and then you just let it slap back to the right, and now that tensioner has been relieved. It's no longer engaging the belt. Now that that is done, the last step to do to get in here, we can do what you need to do is use the belt to help lift the tub up and pull it out the front. Now you have access to the motor, to the heating element, to the fuses and thermostats, the blower wheel, all that stuff on the inside of the machine that you'll need to get to work on. So this is how you disassemble a Samsung and some Maytags that are made by Samsung front load style dryers.